Hi, my name is Jeremy Broun, and this is the guitar that I've made as a demonstration guitar for my radical video integrated book, Acoustic Guitar Easy Build. Now this ebook includes over 50 video tutorials enabling a guitarist with little or no woodworking experience to make their own instrument, and a very worthy instrument. In this video, I'm sharing one of those video tutorials, and the one I've chosen is a particularly satisfying stage of the guitar build, shaping the neck, and it's probably the longest stage in the build. Now, before I share the video, let me explain briefly why my guitar is radical. And the first thing to say is I do not use the term luthier. It's a snobbish term. I am a guitar builder, and I also design and build innovative furniture. The tools and jigs for my project are all low cost. In fact, in total, probably cost less than what some furniture makers spend on a hand plane. The materials used are standard, mostly off the shelf, and I use predominantly three main materials: a softwood prepared strip and 1/2-inch chipboard, and this makes the various simple jigs. And I use a very thin model making plywood for the body, which means I don't have to steam bend the body traditionally. Now the bench I use is also low cost and small, so you don't need a large workspace. I want to remove the blocks that a musician or even a woodworking beginner will have in lack of equipment. And rest assured that the tools used are not specialist luthier tools, but will serve you for many years for general woodworking. And in fact, the course is a very solid basic woodworking course, and the guitar is an ideal instrument for expressing a variety of techniques and processes. As you can see, I've electrified my guitar. In fact, I use a wonderful system called the High Vibe, and I've got separate videos on this. I use this guitar all the time for street performing in my city, so it's actually quite well worn now. You can see my playlist glued onto the guitar. And it's one of my favorite guitars to perform with, as not only does it sound great, but I can play wirelessly, including my backing tracks. So let's jump into this sample tutorial, and hopefully it will inspire some viewers to purchase the ebook, and the links are below. This is probably the most interesting stage of the whole guitar build, shaping the neck, and I use a variety of tools for this, including my novel bath towel technique. And the first thing is to mark out the taper of the neck by attaching the neck temporarily to the body. I'm using masking tape, having cut the joint. And I'm putting a piece of tape on the face to denote where the bridge will be, the bridge position. And I'm using a pre-bought low-cost bridge. You can build your own, of course. And I've marked the outer perimeters of the bridge saddle. Now I'm marking center line from the belly of the guitar and adding that center mark, and then aligning the bridge, and you can see the two guideline marks. This will depict the width of the taper. I'm using a pre-bought top nut. You can see the slots. That will be according to the width of the guitar neck that you want, whether you want steel strung or the wider nylon strung neck. In fact, I'm using nylon strings but with a narrow steel strung neck, just personal preference. So I'm marking the taper from the positions on the bridge up to the edge of the top nut on both sides. And I'm using a biro. I don't know why woodworkers still use pencils today, because they blunt as they draw. I really just cannot understand this. So a ballpoint pen is much clearer. So take your time, make sure that the steel rule doesn't slip, and then always shade waste. The shading of waste you will have learned in the skills test before you started the guitar. Clarifies what you're going to cut. Now this is a pre-fretted fingerboard that I'm using, but you may also use a pre-slotted fingerboard that you will add the frets to. For a total beginner, I would recommend buying the fretboard already fretted. I'm now using a small bandsaw. You could use a jigsaw to follow the line on the outside of the line to cut the taper of the neck. Always work to the line, leave the entire line on, but cut on the waist side of the line, and you remove the line right at the end, at the final finishing stage. So now I'm using a spoke shave. It's a low-cost spoke shave, a rasp, pretty crude sort of tool that, and then my novel braiding sticks. Now you can see the section here. We take off the corners each time, so it's like bisecting the angles until eventually we get the full curvature. But I'm starting off by making a flat cut, working very carefully to the line. You see how I slice the spoke shave and adjust the blade, get it just right. This really is a low-cost one, and but it does the job. And you make sure that you use your forefingers and thumb to control the action. Lovely tool to use. Lovely to hear that zip through the wood. Here we are. You see the finer the cut, the more control you have. It's a general rule with all tools. And then here's a braiding stick. I wrap the aluminium oxide paper. I think I'm using a 40 grit here, fairly coarse. And the idea is to cut it back rather than get a final finish. So this is the first stage, is getting the flats ready to progressively get the curve. So I'm shading waste here. This is crucial because we actually leave the waste on at the very edges. And using a combination square, I can mark the depth of the heel, a parallel line. It's quite a shallow depth on my guitar. And I use a coin, an English coin, to mark the radius very carefully, and always shade waste. You know, marking out is crucial. You can see the two styles I've combined in my demonstration guitar for the machine heads, the slotted head for nylon strung guitars, and the single separate machine heads for steel strung. I thought it was rather novel. It certainly makes my guitar unique. So I'm drawing a center line, and we leave that line on because we don't want to go past that. So I shade waste either side of that line, and make sure the neck is supported, ready to do the first shaping with the spoke shave. Quite a gentle action. I'm now using the rasp. It's quite time consuming, this, but on the other hand, it's so absorbing that you lose track of time, and it's kind of intuitive. See how I use my forefinger to control the file? It's the same with controlling a tenon saw. The way you handle tools, very important to get the success, to get the accuracy, I've used a low-cost hot melt glue gun to glue on the lugs, which help raise the neck, making it easier to shape. And all this is done in the low-cost bench. To think that some woodworkers spend several £100s on a bench. This whole budget for all the tools, including a bandsaw, small bandsaw, is probably well under £300, probably nearer £200 when I made these videos originally. But the whole neck, I don't know, it take a few hours. Once you start it, you won't want to stop until you finish it. Speeding up the action here. Just a lovely sound cutting through the fibres. So the whole thing is progressive. And you notice that I've used softwood for the neck, which defies tradition. Many people say softwood isn't nearly strong enough. But I've proven, I've been using this guitar for several years now for performing outside on the street, you know, in all sorts of temperature conditions. And especially with the steel truss rod that's added, the neck is plenty strong enough. But of course you can use a different wood for your neck, but this entire guitar has been built using just standard section of timber. Here I'm cutting narrow strips of the 40 grit aluminium oxide paper and using the bath towel fashion. The neck on my demonstration guitar wasn't a perfect D section. It was okay. I could have spent more time getting it a perfect D section. So I hope you will. So we go with the grain. Now I'm taking off the temporary lugs and removing the hot melt glue. And I had a small repair job to do. This kind of burl timber broke off. And now I'm checking with calipers. And I've left all the guide marks on, and you'll notice how the neck gets slightly shallower towards the head. And the important thing about the neck is to make it comfortable for your particular hand. It's like a pair of shoes. It should fit. They should fit perfectly. So I'm just finishing off now, and there we are, ready for gluing the neck.